Welcome to the Oswego Alumni Podcast. I'm your host, Dee Perkins. So many of us earn a living sitting in our desk, or some of us working from home. But imagine driving in Manhattan, looking at the tallest skyscrapers you'll ever see, and seeing a fire. Today's guest is one of the brave men and women who see a fire, suit up with their team, and get in there so that they can save lives. I am so excited and honored to spend time talking to class of 1989's Jim Grismer. Hey, Jim.
Hello, Dee. How are you?
I
It
am
is
great. I am really great and so
an
excited to
honor to be here.
talk to you. I know you're currently retired, so luckily we're not taking you away from a call, and I'm not going to hear like whoop whoop. But you did squeeze us in. One of the things that you've been spending time with right now is the 9/11 mobile exhibition. I know you're going to be going to Chicago in a couple of weeks. Can you tell us about the exhibition and your work with them?
Yes, I'm just in the infancy stages with the Tunnel for Towers Foundation. One is the mobile 9/11 mobile exhibition, which goes all over the country, and it's a portable wall of names of those who perished that morning. I'm accompanying two other firefighters in Rosemont, Illinois on May 8th through the 10th. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm also engaged in the Speakers Bureau, going around talking about what the foundation does, tell a little bit about my story. My story begins when I was a kid. My dad worked at the World Trade Center. So I was there on Bicentennial Weekend, if some of you can remember that. um, and my association with the New York City Fire Department, we were hit very hard on that morning in my firehouse and throughout the job. And it's my life's work to not let the world forget about that day. So that's why I'm engaged in those activities.
Your story involves a situation where you would have been on call that day. Do you want to tell that story?
Yeah. Saturday, September 8th, um, I was home with my wife and the phone rang, and it was the firefighter I do my schedule with. And we had originally planned that he would work Sunday night, Monday, and I would work Monday night, Tuesday. But he calls me, with a conflict. It's my buddy Tom Hetzel. Jimmy, I can't get a babysitter for Amanda on Monday. Would you mind switching the 24, as we call it? So I ended up working Sunday night, Monday. He worked Monday night, Tuesday. And most unfortunately, he perished when the North Tower collapsed at 10:28. My son is named after him, Thomas, and we'll talk about Michael Hannon in a few moments. One of the inspirations for the Peace, Free, and Easy. My son, Thomas Michael, is now 22 years old. So a living legacy of great men.
I saw on your Facebook page your son is in the service. Is that the son we're talking about?
Yes, I have a son, 22. He's in the Marine Corps, currently training to be a firefighting crash rescue specialist out in Goodfellow Air Force Base in Texas. And my daughter's in her third year at University of Delaware. So, yeah, I'm a proud dad.
I love the picture on your Facebook page. It's you hugging him. I assume it's
Oh,
hugging him.
yeah,
All we
yeah,
see is your face, and on the sleeve of your shirt it says "Dad."
yeah. He's mini me. He's just like I was at that age, and kind of easygoing. You know, likes to laugh. Very. He's sensitive. He's our like sentimentalists around the house. When we're throwing out an old piece of furniture, he comes out and goes, "What are you doing?" He's but that was the proudest day of my life when he graduated from boot camp. It what an impressive sight that is to see them all march out on the parade deck, you know.
The smile on your face says everything. It
Oh,
really does.
yeah. I'm
So
very
he,
proud of my kids.
so he is a third generation firefighter, with also your uncle involved. Tell us about your family and how firefighting kind of runs across the generations.
Um, Actually, my dad's father, Jack Grismer, was joined the fire service at 41 in Garden City Park, Long Island. Uh, the house next door went on fire, and he instinctually ran in, got them out, and the next day he joined the fire service, and he did it for 30, almost 40 years until he passed. So my son's a fourth generation, actually, but me growing up in Limbrook, Long Island, I grew up in a volunteer firehouse where my dad was a member and officer. I loved the camaraderie amongst the men. It felt like I had like 50 or 60 uncles, and they were always looking out for me. And my uncle Brian, my mother's brother, was a firefighter in the South Bronx during the 70s when they were burning everything down. So he literally, got the crap kicked out of him in the 16 years he was a firefighter. So that was in the back of my head growing up. I did come to Oswego with other plans, but it switched around to the latter later on.
I did see that you have a communications degree.
Yes, actually, broadcasting. Uh,
Woo!
yes, I know we have that in common. Uh, yeah, I thought I I transferred from Nassau Community College in '87, and I really had I thought I might become a weather broadcaster. Um, and as time went on, I enjoyed the classes. Don't get me wrong, but I kind of lost interest. I uh, I was offered a internship at WSTM in Syracuse, Channel 3, and I passed on it. I told the professor that, why don't you give it to someone who's going into that field, because I'm going to be a fireman. I knew by my senior year that's what I was going to do, and it was just a matter of getting my diploma at that point.
Was your father thrilled or kind of hesitant?
um, he was thrilled. You know, he was very proud of our family service, and when he found out that even though I was away at school studying broadcasting and communications, I had a focus on what I wanted to do. It might take a couple of years, but he's pretty happy with that.
So you said you transferred from Nassau Community College to Oswego. Tell us your Oswego origin story. Why did you make the switch?
I graduating from high school in '85. I kind of just wandered into Nassau Community College. I was one of those students who in high school, all I wanted to do was pass. I was a jock. I was more into sports, and I used to go to the teachers like, I'm getting a 65, right? Good. So I don't have to go to summer school, and so I kind of like fell into Nassau because I didn't want to go to work, and so I got my act together scholastically. I don't know what it was. I was on my own, and I was paying for it. So I was getting over the 3.0, and it's like, wow, it's amazing when what happens when you put your mind to things. And so my grades were good, and I was working quite a bit, and I wanted to go away. I wanted the experience of getting off Long Island and you know seeing things. And I almost automatically felt a kinship to Oswego. I had a couple friends, older brothers and sisters that went there, and they loved it. And when I first came up to visit, it was the lake, baby. It was coming up over that hill on East First Street, and I'm like, wow, this is a special place, and that was it. I was sold. My dad was, you don't want to go to, you don't want to see Plattsburgh or Oneonta this weekend? No, this is where I'm coming, so, and, we'll talk about it in a bit, but, the friendships I made here are lasting, many of them. So this place meant so much to me, Oswego.
Isn't that funny? This comes up in every single podcast I do,
Yeah.
every single one, that the friendships that we made on campus, every single person I have talked to said they still talk to people that they met at Oswego. Do you have a guess? I know you have a group of friends that you're still friends with. Do you guys ever talk about it and say, why do you think this is?
Yes, we do. We really don't have a term, or proper words don't put it into proper context. I mean, it's just the love and support of each other. We love each other the way each other is, and we were tight, in the years, in the 10 plus years after graduation. 9/11 kind of really, really bonded us, because we went through an horrific experience with the loss of our two great friends. And that, and that's already 24 years ago. So it's amazing. We just keep in touch, and it doesn't matter that they're 3 hours away or 5 hours away or across the country. It's, we're in touch.
So you get a broadcasting degree, decide you're going to be a firefighter. When you go back home, how do you make the decision of which firehouse you're going to work at? And you go to Manhattan.
The thing about civil service is you have to wait for the next test. So the next test wasn't going to be until May of 92. So I worked a couple of jobs on Long Island. I worked public relations for the Boy Scouts of America, even though I never was a scout. But it was a great experience. And it, years later, my son got into scouting, and I knew a whole hell of a lot about it because of my experience there. I was a camp director during the summer, and it was a lot of fun. I didn't make a lot of money, but I was living at home. I was living in the attic like Fonzie, Fonzie, yeah, it's an old show. Don't worry about
it. I got your Happy Days reference. Come on.
Yeah, you're the new generations are going to be like,
hey.
Yay. And I took a job in 93 with 800 Flowers doing marketing type of thing. And it was, I took the test in 92, scored 100. When I took the physical agility test, I got 100, and I was just waiting to be called while I was at 1-800-Flowers in Westbury. And every day I could see from my office window the skyline of Manhattan. I'm like, I'm coming. Just wait. And I got called on June 22nd, 1995. And I was sworn in the 9th of July. It seems like yesterday. It's 30 years ago already. And I had a very rewarding career. With the exception of the 9/11 experience, I loved every minute of it. I really did. So
you wind up in the, let's see if I'm going to get this right, Upper East Side of Manhattan?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. Look at me.
Yeah.
Get my directions correct.
Yeah, great neighborhood.
I don't know how civil service works. Did you have the opportunity to choose, places with lower buildings like Queens and Brooklyn, or it was Manhattan, here I come?
When you're in the academy, they call it Proby School. They ask you, where would you like to go? But I had a couple of contacts who were, chiefs, and so I wanted to go to Manhattan. So a friend of the family's made a phone call, and I got ladder 13, where this particular friend of the family had started his career. So it was a great neighborhood to work in. A lot of different types of buildings to fight fires in, and a lot of my college friends lived in the neighborhood. So that parlayed well after I got off, my shift, and met up with them. So it was an exciting time.
What do we not know about the difference between fighting a fire in a high rise and fighting a fire in a 2-story home?
The big difference is smoke. The thing about high-rise fires, and I went to quite a few of them, if you have a fire on the lower floors, the stairwells will act as chimneys, and people are not educated enough to just shelter in place. You're in basically a concrete apartment room, and New Yorkers, especially after 9/11, didn't want to be in a building that was on fire. So they would, all crowd down the stairwells. And many times, we dragged people out of the stairwells. They were immediately overcome with smoke. And these buildings could be 40, 50 stories tall, and people 30 stories above the fire are getting overcome and killed by, superheated smoke. So smaller buildings, it's a little bit more easier to contain. You worry about the surrounding exposures, the places next door, but the high-rise fires were very complicated because of the smoke. And in both cases, the sooner you get water on the fire, the anxiety and the danger goes down.
Now, if there was only a way to let everybody else know in the building, okay, we're good. Stay where you are,
Yeah,
right?
I don't know how many people I chased out of the stairwells. Get back in your room. You can't talk to me like that. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Get back in your room.
Ah. Okay, so getting back to Oswego, one of the things we've talked about and kind of hinted at is a memorial that you were very involved in
Yeah,
getting done. It's called the Peace, Free, and Easy Memorial. I love that it's from a lyric with Crosby, Stills, and Nash's
yeah,
Wooden Ships. I love that.
yeah.
Tell everybody, how this started, how this came about.
Well, I will say, to begin, it was a collective teamwork effort. There were a lot of people involved in this, but the first person who contacted me about this was Karen Colucci Coya, who 1989, she was like the mayor of Oswego when she went to school here. She, after the deaths of Colleen Brunner and Lynn Hartunian in the Pan Am Lockerbie tragedy, she kind of took leadership in memorializing their lives. And in 1989, the entrance of our campus had a plaque dedicated to Colleen and Lynn. Fast forward to 2014, Karen calls me. I'm in a quandary. Me and Betsy Oberst with the Alumni Association, we don't know what to do with this plaque now. It's a beautiful plaque, and it commemorates two beautiful people. And so on my side, I had been talking to some friends, Mike Costello from 90, Tim McDowell from 90, Mike Gay from 89, we had, after 9/11, we had a picnic bench and a couple trees in the current free and easy site. And we wanted to expand it somehow. We felt we wanted to do something more with it, but we weren't sure. Karen calls me with her little, roadblock. she goes, I'm going up to see Betsy and a couple of university officials on Friday afternoon. Would you be willing to meet with me and maybe we could figure this out? And I said, I just happened to be off. So I'm like, I'll see you up there. I'll be there. And it just came about real quick. Mike Gay and Mike Costello ended up meeting us up there, and we sat at King Hall. And on the way, I was driving up Route 81, and I was thinking of how we could tie this all together. And I'm like, I'm thinking of songs, and Michael Hannon was turned me on to Crosby, Stills and Nash and Neil Young. So I'm like, there's a part of the Wooden Ship song called, it's a refrain, talking about very free and easy. I mean, it gives me chills. And I was like, okay, maybe that could be the theme, and we could honor Colleen and Lynn and Mike and Rich. And I just went to Betsy and Karen about that, and Karen's jumped all over it, said, we could do something like at the University of Syracuse for the 38 students who perished at Lockerbie. So it's unbelievable how this all came about. It was in one afternoon. There was a fellow named Mitch Fields, Mike Latito from the grounds department at Oswego. They were telling us we have funds available to pull something off like this. Mitch Fields just said, hey, you're probably going to have to raise about $25,000. And we were like, oh, that's nothing. And we did that like super quick, especially with social media. We did that in a couple months. So in 2014 on Alumni weekend, we broke ground for the new Peace, Free, and Easy. That's how things materialize so quickly. And it was at the 2014 reunion that we came in contact with Colleen Brunner's ASA sisters, Jennifer Palmieri Herman, Stephanie Foreman, and later on Danielle Remington Carr and Amy Barone. And we kind of threw our heads together and raised some money, and a year later, it was done. It all came apart. Came together very quickly, and it was ready for the reunion weekend in 2015. A large part, Betsy was the one who navigated all the roadblocks with the administration. She'll never admit it, but I know she said, "Hey, we can't have any delays. Let's be focused." And she guided us. And we had the dedication on June 6th of 2015. All the families came. It was, I can't put it into words. We had Jamie Notre Damus from Syracuse, kind of a locally famous guy. He did wooden ships for us. I mean, it's just a true testament of Oswego people. We just, it just came together so easy. And, there's so many remarkable people involved. I'm sorry if I'm not mentioning other people who were involved in this, because there were a lot.
But I love Betsy's magic. Betsy is a very special person.
Oh, she's the best.
Mm-hmm.
She's the best. When she retired, I do wood carvings, and we gave her like a wood carving with the Peace, Free, and Easy picture on it. And at night at one of the reunions, we had candles and paper bags and a heart shape around the center stone. And that was the centerpiece of this. And it's an old New York City Fire Department saying, "You done good." And she was like, "Oh my God, I love it." We had presented to Betsy Oberst for your guidance and leadership, and but she's amazing. Actually, her husband was the first person I met from Oswego when he visited Nassau back in 1986. So it's, you could say the Obersts, have been a part of my Oswego experience from the beginning.
So beyond your experience, I know there's this group we've talked about a couple of times now that you're a part of, that all kind of hang together, I'm guessing, on a text chain
Yes.
and in real life. And in real
And
life
in
with
real
other.
life,
Yes.
yes.
So go ahead, tell the secret. What is the name of your group?
The Oswego Uglies. Never officially recognized by the administration. We didn't want to tick off Deborah Stanley at the time, but if you come on June 7th, you'll see our banner next to the ASA banner hanging above the.
Wait a minute. The Oswego Uglies have a logo?
Oh yeah, yeah. It's a donkey in front of the Oswego yellow and green O with a Rams helmet, and it's a Tim McDowell story of showing up at a party with a Rams helmet on and putting his head through every piece of sheetrock in the house. Thank God it wasn't my house, but it it's just one of those funny things that just grew a life of its own. Some Omicron sister called us ugly one night, and we kind of wore it as a badge of courage, whether it was our behavior or our, we're not that good looking. So I could, yeah, well, great. So that's how it came about. And, we will never, ever be officially recognized like a fraternity or sorority or a service group, but we don't need to be. We do a lot of good things.
So you guys come up, you said to me, every year to gather at the memorial?
Yes. Starting in 2015, we kind of got together as a group at Alumni Weekend. I said, when do you want to come up? And so we kind of said, well, we'll see you next year. For now, while we're, young and able, we'll try to make it every year. And not everybody makes it every year, but I have, and there's probably 24 other people who have. And it's a group of so many special people, and we celebrate the lives of these 4 individuals. And it's where I am every first weekend of June.
How did the group, when you were in school, come together? Is there were you all at the same dorm? Did you all take the same class? How is it formed?
I would say it was basically a Seneca originated group, 7th floor Seneca, 7th and 9th floor Seneca. I was a Scales guy, but Michael Hannon, my friend from Limbrook, lived on 7th floor Seneca. I did all my studying at Scales because it was quiet and great people, but I did all my, socializing over at Seneca. It was a little bit more lively, more my taste. And that whole group, the 7th and 9th floor, were always warring, playing pickup basketball or football. And it became one group, then a bigger group. And, we moved off campus and, always were at each other's parties. That's how I didn't work senior year. We raised money by having parties to pay the NIMO heat bill. 5 kegs, $5 each, and maybe you might get a special punch, But it was so much fun, and it just grew into a lot more people once we went off campus, and it was a lot of fun.
So you said about 24 people come to your reunions. We've got your actual reunion happening this year.
Yes, there'll be a lot more.
How big is this group?
I would think it's going to double and then some. And the beauty of it all is, for the last 10 years, people who have come up for all kinds of different anniversaries, class of 68, class of 72, they live nearby, so they come by our site every year. There's like a handful of couples that they bring their own coolers, and we hang out. They bring their own chairs, and it's like a giant picnic around the site. We you know we have a couple of canopy tents. Laura Kelly and Michelle Spinner and Joy Knopp, they're always good about orchestrating getting us electricity to the site so we can play music and do all kinds of, we could light it up after sunset. It's a really cool experience.
Okay, so this is a podcast going out to everybody. Is
Yeah,
everyone invited?
everybody's invited.
This is the Saturday of Alumni Weekend.
Yeah, I would say I'll be there at 2:00 on, and Mike Costello and I will be setting up the logistics. And, I would say 3:00 on, that's where we'll be. So when you do your official campus Alumni Weekend activities, come and visit us. We'll be there until after sunset.
And it's more than just a good time. In researching you, I found out about this memorial, and I've been on campus a lot. I gotta say, I've never seen it. So I'm really looking forward to being there and making a trip over to see it. And we talked about earlier, like what are the directions. So for those people who don't really remember how to get there, go ahead and review it with us.
Sure. It is just west of the old campus, new campus bridge that they used to have snowball fights on. Behind Tyler Hall, if you're heading to new campus, if you're heading towards Seneca, you go over the bridge, it'll be on your right. It adjoins a parking lot and the tennis courts. And Mike and Rich were actually, were in Seneca when they were when they went to Oswego. So, and that's where their park bench and maple trees were planted in 2002. So it's a nice little site, and we're very proud of it.
And we want to give a shout out to the reunion committee. I promised that I would get all of the reunion years. I'm not going to read the whole list, but sure. 2015 is celebrating a 10th year reunion. The 15th cluster is 9, 10, and 11, 29, 10, and 11. 25th is 2000. Jim's cluster, 89, 90, and 91. And my reunion is the 40th anniversary of the class of 1985. So if you want more details.
Say it, Dee. 40 years ago in 1985.
I can't believe it. I can't believe when I say it, I'm just like, wait a minute. It's like yesterday. I can remember so many things that like are so completely in technicolor in my brain. And it's like 40 years.
Once you have children, God hits the fast forward button. So, here I am. I used to have a nice head of hair back in 1988 and 89, but, it takes your hair and, feeling older, I guess, especially when you're in your 50s, you start to feel mortality. My dad passed 2 years ago. My godmother just passed away. And all these people that were in your life that you thought would be around forever, they're gone now. It's kind of like a reality punch in the nose, it's, but we, just like the free and easy, we're grateful for the memories and the people who had a part in our lives. And that's why we celebrate them,
Never forget.
Never, ever forget.
So my last question is always the same. If you were to get an Oscar for whatever reason, here's your chance to give a shout out to the people at Oswego that really helped you in your success in life. And I don't think we have time for all 50 people in your group, but I'm sure there's like 10 or so that you can, name and give them a shout out, give them their little moment of fame.
Can I be Marlon Brando and just send an Indian woman in my place to just take the award and walk off the stage.
Come
No,
on, there's got to be some
no,
teachers.
of course.
If you want me to say just teachers, you could do that.
I have one teacher in mind, and he had a profound inspiration to me. It was David Glick, Dr. Glick from the communications department. He was a Korean War veteran. He ran a tight ship. You know, there were a lot of professors, doctors at Oswego. You know, you could walk in late, you could kind of saunter into class, you know, in your sweatpants and your hair uncombed. Dr. Glick held you accountable. If you were late for his class, he'd kick you out. And, you know, he said, you know, don't roll out of bed and come to my class, you know, fix yourself up a little bit. And I never forgot that. And he, you know, I got to know him at a personal level, and he started picking away at, you know, where do you see yourself, Mr. Grismer? And I said, I see myself helping people. I don't see myself broadcasting. I feel myself being the boots on the ground, the hands-on firefighter down the line. He goes, I've never heard that before. Tell me more about it, you know? And he had an office in the library. So he was writing a book, and you would sometimes be in the 24-hour study room, and his door would be open, and you're like, if he sees me walk by, he's going to drag me in. So sometimes I would just, like, you know, try to slip on by real quick. Mr. Grismer, come here. I want to talk to you about something. He was writing a book, and he would read me a couple passages. What do you think? You know? And I'd be like, you know, I'd be totally intimidated by him. But I'm like, that's pretty, you know, wow, that's a great saying, you know? And he held me accountable, and he demanded the best out of every student. I know that sounds trite, but of all the people I had in Oswego, that was the guy. And I will have to say one more thing before I send the Indian up on the stage to get my award. The guy I met, who I had a lot in common with, was Jim Basquill. He'll be there in June. That connection I made with him, he's like my best friend. And life has gotten in the way, and we talk every couple of months. We talked the other day, and it's like I talked to him yesterday, you know, and we had a way of supporting each other, and believing in one another, you know, and of all, you know, I could talk all day long about the different friendships I made. I really can. I am so blessed for that Oswego experience. I was there less than 2 years, and I really didn't want to leave after graduation. I did a fire service presentation in Newark, New York, like 10 years ago. And I said, a little background on me. I went to Oswego. You know, unfortunately, I graduated on time. My parents are like, when are you coming home, Jim? You know, I didn't come home until after Labor Day. I spent the summer working, and, you know, I loved it so much. I loved taking my bike down to Brightbeck Park, and we lived on Liberty Street, and man, I could talk all day, but I know you have places to go, Dee, and, you know.
No, and I tried really hard to keep this short, because I know I could ask you 3 more questions that I already prepped you and said, oh, I might ask about this, but
no, it's
but I love your love for the college. It's so amazing.
Oh, yeah.
And you know, I can absolutely feel how genuine it is.
Sure.
but know that you're not alone on the love for Dr. Glick. I've heard that in my
Me too.
circles are communications people, and there are so many people that felt that way about Dr. Glick. So you are not alone on that. Having
Amazing man.
kind of amazing that in a world we live in now where everyone's trying to be gentler with each other, that the guy that really made the difference for you was the guy who was get here on
Straightforward.
time or get out.
No BS. Like, hey, you come to my class, be prepared to engage. I'm going to call on you to, ask your opinion on something. And there was 100 people in Lanigan 101, but you better be on top of your game. And there was no sleeping or doing the crossword puzzle in his class. That's for sure.
Can you imagine today, the kids are going to classes now in pajama pants. What is Dr. Glick saying?
Throwing them out. He would say he threw someone out who came, I think it was one of the rugby guys. He had ripped up shorts and work boots. He looked like he'd been out the night before. He goes, "Get out of my room. Don't ever show up here slovenly ever again." And me and Jim Basketball, like, slovenly, we never even heard that word, but we knew what it meant, Yeah,
and back then, kids, there was
character,
no Google.
but he's one of those people that inspired you. He took
Jim,
liking to me.
I completely look forward to seeing you at reunion. And
You better come, Dee. You better come. No, we'll be there at 3:00 on
3:00 on
June 7th, Saturday.
And everyone is staying in Fennell this year, Fennell and Hart.
Yes, okay.
Which is interesting. I don't think I've ever been in those dorms.
Yeah. Yeah. I had a lot of friends when I was in Fennell and Hart. I used to go to the below the dining hall was the gym, where I belonged to. We used to pump iron back in those days, and that's a cool place. We're staying at an Airbnb on Bridge Street across from the Sting. So,
oh, okay. I know where that is.
Yeah. Airbnb is the way to go. The hotels are too expensive, way too expensive now.
And there's not 50 people in that Airbnb, though, right?
I can't tell you that. No, everybody will be comfortable. Well, actually, we have 2 right in a row. So we have a whole nother group staying next to us.
Oh my God, that sounds perfect.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
All right. I'm going to wrap this up, Jim. Thank you for your service, for everything you've done. You're an amazing person to talk to. Like we said, this could have gone on for another hour.
It probably could have. And thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk about the Peace Free and Easy, about my Oswego experience. I appreciate it more than you know.
Oh, you're so sweet. Okay. So for everyone else who's listening, if you have a great guest like Jim, you can reach out to us by email. Our email address is alumni@oswego.edu. And we're always looking for guests from our over 95,000 alumni. Isn't that amazing, Jim? I love when I hear that number. Even when I say it, it's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of people.
I am Dee Perkins, and thanks for listening to the Oswego Alumni Podcast.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Oswego Alumni Podcast. Please note that the views and opinions shared by our guests are their own and may not reflect those of the Oswego Alumni Association, SUNY Oswego, or its representatives. For guest suggestion, email us at alumni@oswego.edu.